Right. Well, welcome to the second webinar of the 2021 Hunter to Hunter Connective Conversations series brought to you by MSU Extension. So happy to be here with you tonight, and I'm happy to welcome Laura and Erik to be our presenters. Just a couple house cleaning things. MSU is an affirmative action equal opportunity employer. Michigan State University Extension programs and materials are open to all without regard to race, color, national origin, sex, gender identity, religion, age, height, weight, disability, political beliefs, sexual orientation, marital status, family status, or veteran status. So in a nutshell, our programs are open to all. I'd like to kick off this evening just by asking a really quick question. I'm going to launch a poll. Have you ever participated in an MSU Extension program before tonight? So if those on the webinar can just take a second and indicate yes or no. This is completely anonymous, by the way. All right, we got 2 yeses. So some veterans of extension programs. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm sure that as we move along, folks will join us. But without further ado, I am so happy to introduce our first presenter tonight, Laura Quist, who is with Michigan State University Extension, and she is the program leader for outdoor and environmental education. And I will let her do a more thorough introduction of herself because she wears so many hats and is so talented. So Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate it. And good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I work specifically with 4-H, so that is youth, the ages 5 to 19. I support programming in those areas with shooting sports, environmental and outdoor education, and also some high-risk activities related to rock climbing, canoeing, kayaking, and camping in remote areas. So glad to be here tonight to share some ideas and tips on how to work with youth when mentoring them for hunting. I appreciate the opportunity. And before I share some of our tips from MSU Extension and 4-H on tips for suggestions on mentoring, I'd like to share with you briefly about who we are at Michigan 4-H Shooting Sports, what we do, a little bit about our safety record, as well as some about our limitations, because I think that's important to discuss in the context of tonight's conversation. So who we are, what makes 4-H Shooting Sports programs distinctive from other shooting programs is that our programs focus on, number 1, youth development, 2, volunteer training structure, and 3, a strict adherence to policy for safety. And those 3 elements are applied evenly in the same way through these different activities in shooting sports. Ages 8 to 19 can participate in live fire through archery, rifle, shotgun, muzzleloader, and air pistol. And then ages 5 to 19 participate in hunting and wildlife skills. There's not necessarily live fire associated with that, but that discipline can be partnered up with any of the others with great success. Here's a map with our participation information from 2019 and 2020. We've got just over 500 certified shooting sports instructors across the state of Michigan. So those are volunteers that have been screened and accepted into the program and then have participated in a 15-hour training workshop to participate in a particular discipline, archery or rifle or one of the others, to lead an activity in shooting sports with our youth. Our most popular areas are archery, followed by rifle, which includes BB air rifle or work in 22. Our program is not just in Michigan. Our program is directed by a nationally chartered entity, and that is the National 4-H Shooting Sports Committee. And there are 47 states that participate in 4-H that also participate in the shooting sports project area that are part of that group. That committee provides our curriculum and training, our image enhancement, and also program oversight and continuity. I want to share a little bit about our safety record and the numbers of youth that have participated in the program. We have about 500,000 youth a year, and that was from 2016 data that participate nationwide, half of them in club life, and the other half through camps and fair activities. The shooting sports program began back in 1980, so the data that I'm about to show you has just over 40 years, or just over 50 years of information, 40 years, sorry, of data. And during that time, millions of youth have been reached with our programs. Also during that time, only 6 documented injuries have required hospitalization. We're pretty proud of that, and I'm going to elaborate on that in just a second. Our programs have a safety record that the insurance that we extend to our volunteers and our members, it's the same rate for shooting sports as it is for sewing clubs or for arts and crafts clubs. Horses and ATVs are a different story, and those rates are doubled. But as long as our volunteers and our members are engaging in our activities by our rules and following our program guidelines, they are all covered with insurance at the same rate as a sewing club. This is part of a study that was done in 2013, 2014. And it compares 4-H shooting sports to some other activities, other sporting activities nationwide that are pretty popular. And it really shines on the safety record of 4-H shooting sports. So in this first column here, it shows several activities that you might find youth participating in, from football, wrestling, basketball, and some others. The second column shows the numbers of youth that are participating nationwide, and this particular year is 2014. The next column is the number of injuries that were documented that resulted in hospitalizations. The injury rate on the far side, 6.7% for football, 4.8% for wrestling. Hockey's down here much lower at 1.4%. 4-H shooting sports, much, much lower rate. To be fair, these are all contact sports, which 4-H shooting sports is not. So that needs to be pointed out. But certainly it is a high risk activity. And because we're following rules and guidelines, because we're screening our volunteers, because our members understand the rules and the expectations when they're engaging in these activities, we're able to achieve an excellent safety record. So when you compare those programs, for example, 4-H shooting sports to soccer, youth are 42,500 times more likely to be injured in soccer than in shooting sports. And that's saying something. We're very proud of that. I'd like to chat for a second about the instructional focus of our workshops. All of our volunteers participate in a 15-hour workshop, and that's even if they have backgrounds in shooting sports, if they're lifelong shooters, if they're from police or military training, if they've already taken USAA credentials or NRA credentials, they still participate in our training workshops. And again, our training workshops are different in that they focus on youth development. They teach adults how to instruct kids. It's not just about the equipment itself, but it's about how to teach kids. It's how to teach kids that first shot and to do it quickly and safely to get them excited and keep them excited without a bunch of lecture in front of it. There's a large focus on safety and risk management, and also on life skills like healthy living, citizenship, and STEM learning. Some examples of programs we have going on in 2021 that are related to hunting in particular. We just ran a 6-week virtual program about camera traps, where kids were introduced to researchers that are using camera traps effectively to track mountain lions. They met hunters that are using camera traps over their food plots to learn about the wildlife that are coming through their properties. In the next couple of weeks, we're gonna begin a program about hunting with dogs and how to train your dogs and how to use them in the field. We're also about to embark on a shooting sports leadership program so that teens involved in our counties and our clubs in shooting sports can learn a little bit more effectively about how to become spokespeople for shooting sports and become advocates in their own communities, whether it's for fundraising, whether it's to become speakers, to gain more leaders or to gain more volunteers or members for their groups, or just to take it to the next level. And we also hope to partner with DNR here shortly and to offer a hunter safety club statewide through the use of Zoom. And then they could partner with an instructor locally for that live field day component to get their certification. Again, related to hunting, we also have that discipline of study that focuses on hunting and wildlife themes. And we also offer tournaments, scholarships, leadership programs, camps, and clubs. So a comprehensive program with many hands involved and statewide in nature. However, what we're not able to do and what is a real challenge for our organization is something that you all are trying to do right now. And it's something that we are struggling for ways to overcome. We are disallowed from engaging with youth on the actual hunt, and that is a nationwide policy. We can engage in hands-on learning with everything before the hunt and with everything prior to the hunt, but for that point of kill, due to liability and perhaps public perception, we are disallowed from engaging in that point of kill moment. So it's critical for us in 4-H to be able to connect with organizations and volunteers, much like yourselves, because we have families, we have members, and we have volunteers who are looking for mentorship in the activity of hunting. And we can't do it, but we can hand them off and partner with groups like you. So we're looking to do that. And I encourage anybody listening who wants to partner up and is willing to be a part of that to reach out to me after this program. We do have some tips on what we think are strong suits in our program to make it a successful and safe program here in Michigan and nationwide. And these are practices that we would suggest to other organizations that are interested in mentoring youth hunters. First and foremost is having screened volunteers as part of your program. And that for us means background checks and reconducting those background checks. So a couple of times throughout the year and on an annual basis. As we meet new volunteers, we conduct interviews with them, make sure they understand what we're trying to accomplish, what we want to achieve, and to find out what their goals are and what they're looking to do so that we can make sure it's a good match for both groups. We check in with our volunteers regularly, see how they're doing, and to see what support that they need to be able to be effective in their effort. The second thing that's important is to be able to provide policy and structure for the program. And again, this is all common language that needs to be considered as you're building a good, strong program for your mentorship. And that should include youth safety policies and considerations. That should include policies on how you're going to act and behave, things that are going to be allowed and disallowed when out in the field or en route to your activity, and risk management practices. And I'm happy to go into more examples about those or provide our risk management templates that we share with all of our clubs and require them to have on file as part of their activities and to be reviewed on a regular basis. So if an emergency situation were to occur, there would be a written emergency procedure plan right there on hand for everybody to follow, so that there would be quick and effective action, decisive action in case of an emergency should it occur. And third, to conduct ongoing training. And that could be to discuss new concepts. It could be to review existing concepts, or also to role play and practice scenarios. Those are all important things to provide.
Laura, I have a question. This is Erik.
Absolutely.
For those background checks, how much time does that take, and what's the cost for doing
So
that?
there's one background check that's absolutely free. And Katie, can you type this into the chat for me? I've got too many screens, but if you go to the Michigan State Police, I believe it's MIP, I think it's MIPSOR is the acronym we're looking for. MIPSOR.org, it might be MIPSOR.com, but it's the Michigan State Police. They have sex offender registries that are online, and we conduct those twice a year. You can run those by a couple of ways, by the full name, and you want to use the name that would be appearing on the driver's license of the individual. And double check it against the driver's license, because if they give you one name and it's listed under another, there won't be a hit on the registry. So make sure you've got the proper name. You can also run that against an address for a volunteer or for a prospective volunteer. So you should run it both ways from time to time and on a regular basis. The other checks that we run, we use a third party, an outside vendor, to run those for our entire organization. And Eric, I don't have a figure on what we pay to do that. I could provide you more information on that after the call.
Yeah, I believe that the National Clearinghouse the extension uses is like roughly $20 to $21 per background check, if I'm remembering correctly. And Laura, I will find that link and throw it in the chat as well.
Very good. Any other questions about those very broad recommended practices before we go on? And looking at a little bit further into the ongoing training conversations, these are some topics that you might consider for ongoing training for your existing volunteer pool. Discussions of boundaries. What boundaries are you going to establish? What's allowable and what's not allowable? And those are discussions that should be happening between your mentors, your mentees, and the parents. And when those communications happen, the communications should always be happening with the parents included. And that's in writing, that's in person, that's on the phone. We always need to make sure that the parents are included in those conversations, that they're in the loop, that they know what's going on, that they know what's expected of the youth. And it's another way to protect your volunteer, to make sure that if the parents involved and the youth is involved, there's no second guessing of what was said or what was not said. It's just another layer of security for your volunteer. And that middle one that I skipped over, the expectations. Making sure everybody understands what's going to happen before, during, and after any of these activities is very important. So lay out the groundwork, let everybody know during the activity, and then afterwards do a good follow-up. And that could be in person, it could be in emails, it could be in phone call conversations, it could be in a Zoom like this. But providing those details and giving an opportunity for questions and answers and to clear things up is an important opportunity. And the parents, again, should always be included in that opportunity. Resources available for volunteer training. And the first one is one that I would highlight in particular. It's a training curriculum developed by our volunteer specialists and mentoring team here at Michigan State University Extension. And it's called the Ready to Go Volunteer Training Toolkit. And it is designed exactly to help people like those listening to this call on how to be effective mentors, how to develop training programs to help support those volunteers as they're doing this work with youth. There is a free sample of the curriculum up on the website, and I'll post that in the chat shortly. You can also buy the toolkit, it's available for sale, but our educators will also come and connect by Zoom that will come in person and conduct 1 hour, 2 hour, half day, full day workshops if there's a group of people who want to run through a series of activities that could be tailored to your specific needs to help you do this successfully. So that's called the Ready to Go Toolkit. We also have online some of the foundations of our 4-H programs. They're called the guiding principles. They're applied to all of our programs, whether it's a 4-H program and working with cows or sows or sewing or shooting sports. And it describes what we do and why we do it. And it's just a simple 2-page handout that's worth taking a peek at. If anybody on this call would like to partner up or even just learn more about 4-H programming local to you, we have a link that I'll put in the chat of your local county staff person who runs your 4-H program, and they would be available to follow up with and ask questions to find out what shooting sports clubs are in your community, or if there are families that want to get connected to hunting opportunities that are looking for that. And I can tell you there are many that are. We just can't offer it inside the boundaries of 4-H, but we can certainly connect them to organizations outside that want to offer that. And finally, as a resource that we'll put in the chat here shortly, and I believe Erik's going to elaborate more about it, it's a mentorship guide, a 200-page mentorship guide specifically on mentoring youth hunters. It's an excellent and thorough resource developed by R3. So we'll put that link out there available to you all as well. The contact information, the cell phone, we're out and about a lot these days, sometimes working from home because of the pandemic, now back in the office, frequently out in counties. So I'm not always at my desk. So here's my cell phone. We maintain a website with tournament information, training workshop information, and also a Facebook presence. So you can reach out to me and follow up in any of those ways. And I welcome those calls. Any questions before I turn it over to Erik?
Thanks so much, Laura. That was great. And I hope that everybody kind of got a flavor of what we do in Extension as far as youth development programming, and also some resources that are out there that can help you mitigate risk as we're all thinking in this day and age that we want to engage with youth, but there's some hesitations there. So there's some great resources so that you can feel more comfortable doing that. And while Erik is getting ready for his portion of the presentation, I just have one more polling question for you. We're just curious on how you got started in hunting. Was it because of family members? Did friends get you involved, or was it someone else? And if it was someone else, feel free to type that in the chat, and we can, so family, you can select more than one also. Family seems to be the big draw, so that's great. All right. All right, Erik, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Katie. I'm going to do kind of take you through a little story here. This is a topic that's very near and dear to me, mentoring new hunters. I'm an adult onset hunter. I currently am the state president for the National Deer Association, formerly known as the Quality Deer Management Association. So you would think, well, here's a person that's maybe grew up in a hunting family, grew up with hunting, has that in his roots, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I grew up in a Chicago suburb. I had no family or friends that hunted. I was, however, very fascinated with the natural world. I did have a large wooded park about a half a block from my home that I'd spend a lot of time in. I channeled a lot of my energy into fishing, local ponds, polluted rivers in the Chicago area, and I also became an Eagle Scout through scouting. But had no hunting opportunities until I was 22, out of college, and living in Duluth, Minnesota, when a buddy I worked with offered to take me ruffed grouse hunting. I told him, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'd love to do it. I don't know if I can actually shoot anything, but I would love to come along and see what that's all about. He happened to have a very good bird dog and a spare shotgun, so he said, here, carry this shotgun. You're not hunting unless you do. So I carried it. Once we started seeing birds, my heart rate accelerated. Once you hear a ruffed grouse take off, never heard that before at close range. It gets exciting real quick, and I instantly became a hunter. I had no problem using the shotgun, and that got me hooked on that. I bought a bird dog, got into training my bird dog, spent a ton of time bird hunting up in northern Minnesota, but didn't even deer hunt until I was 28 years old. When we moved to Michigan, I went to church, started talking to some people at church about my love for bird hunting, and I met a couple of guys there I started bird hunting with, and they also were deer hunters. And they had access to about 120 acres near my home. And kind of the same thing. I don't know if I can really shoot a deer, you know, bird's a different thing, but I'd love to come along and see what it's all about. And sure enough, as soon as I started seeing deer and being in that hunting situation, the spark was lit. Led to me buying my own hunting property of about 79 acres that I work on, led to me becoming a member of the Quality Deer Management Association, getting involved with that at a volunteer level, and that's where I am today. So we can get a lot of places, we can do a lot of good things if we take the time to mentor the people around us and mentor others that are interested in becoming hunters. So I am passionate about this particular issue, and Tim and Steve and Laura, I'm really glad to be on here with the opportunity to talk about this with you. I am, you can see my video there, I'm also the kind of crazed looking guy in the bottom here. That's me with two lovely ladies there in the bottom picture. One, Carrie, with the camel hat, who's taken off her orange vest at this point, and Margot to the left of her, which is our mentored hunter last year in the National Deer Association's Field to Fork program. So the past few years, while I've mentored many new youth hunters, as Laura describes over the years, I hadn't mentored any adult hunters. And so the National Deer Association set up this Field to Fork program, had a number of things going for it. It number one, kind of connected you with those people that were interested in being mentored, brokered the connection, so to speak, provided guidance for a full program. So it provided guidance for the mentors on how to be a mentor, in addition to all the resources for the mentees. So I've had 2 good years in that program. Margot was one of the hunters last year, so I kind of featured her. She started hunting in the state game area with her mentor, Carrie. They had some close encounters with deer, but no shot opportunities. And then they came to my place. And I think fortunately, in a lot of ways, she did not have success right away. She was incredibly excited because she was seeing so many deer, watching so many natural behaviors, but what the situations weren't quite right, or she got bad cases of deer fever that led her to hold off on squeezing the trigger on the crossbow that was provided and loaned to her by the Field to Fork program. But finally, I think it was on her fifth hunt, she had that opportunity in a blind on my farm. She was sitting with Carrie, her mentor. I should point out, in our program, we don't typically have people of different sexes in a blind together. So just as there can be concerns with youth, we don't want to create situations where there could, something legitimately bad or misunderstanding or anything could arise. So we tend to pair up females with females, males with males. But I got the opportunity to spend time with them in advance, coach them on what they were going to see in the blinds, walk them out to the blinds. I hunted a different blind. We were in communication. Once they had harvested their deer, help them get out of their blinds, and then go get them. So this bottom picture is when we're getting ready to go get the deer. The upper left is Margot. She's looking at that arrow she shot. It was a complete pass through, and she's very excited there to see that crossbow bolt in the ground. It did, in her case, while you can see it in center shot, she got just behind the front leg. She was just slightly low, just slightly back. So she only got one lung and liver, and it led to a long track. The cool thing there in the center picture is that as part of our branch, we have a deer tracker with a great dog who loaned his time for helping out with the Field to Fork program. So he actually came out. Margot tracked this deer for well over almost a half a mile until she hit a plowed field where she couldn't track it any further. We called in the tracker, another couple hundred yards. We forgot the deer. Her mentor that same day, Carrie, also shot a doe. So in the right-hand picture, you see that. I want to point out Carrie was a mentor, but she's kind of moderately experienced. She's just a really enthusiastic hunter. She believes strongly in women becoming hunters and wanted to help with the program, but she resisted until she found out that we had a formal program with the resources and everything in place to help her do that. And so that will be one of the kind of points I'll be making. These stories I tell kind of make some points I think are important as we look at mentoring hunters, attracting, getting new hunters. There's another number of things that I can refer back to as we go through here. So that's why I wanted to share those pictures before I got in. This is about real people. This is real people getting really excited. It's about lighting a spark that maybe they didn't even know was there. They had an interest like Margot did, like I did, but they just needed a spark. They needed an opportunity. They may have needed some equipment like a lone shotgun that my buddy gave to me, or getting to hunt over his bird dog. They needed, in her case, maybe to come to my farm, get in some blinds, have an opportunity to see some deer behaving naturally. All of those things help hunters get over the hurdle and get the spark lighted to become a hunter. So I'll move on here and talk briefly about, if I can get the slide to move. There we go. This program, the Field to Fork program, started actually about almost 4 years ago in a farm market in Athens, Georgia. A couple of QDMA leaders decided, hey, how are we going to attract more hunters? How do we get hunters that maybe aren't from hunting families, but have an interest? And they decided, well, we'll set up in a farm market and we'll serve venison. And we'll talk about the benefits of free range, organic, locally grown, low fat, high protein venison, and give them a chance to taste it and see if we can recruit some people to try to become deer hunters. And sure enough, it worked. So these were more of the yuppie types. They're out of college, educated, with an income, but just hadn't had an opportunity to hunt. That's gotten a lot of attention. The upper left picture is from the Wall Street Journal, but it's been picked up by the stories about this have been in many of the major newspapers around the country. A lot of attention focused on this. In this study that Laura mentioned, that was done by the Wildlife Management Institute and the R3 committees on the missing link in R3, one of the things they found is 9.7% of adult Americans would be interested in trying hunting if they had an opportunity, instruction, and a program to get there. That equals over 24 million people who have at least the interest if we as hunters can help them get there. And so that's a huge opportunity. And then Laura mentioned the shooting sports. It's even more. It's over close to 20% of adult Americans would be interested in shooting if they had a mentor and instruction and a program to help them get there. So that's our Field to Fork program. It consists of formal education classes for the participants. That's the bottom right picture. That's what we did here locally with Margot, was one of our participants. We held a day where we did instruction on the use of the crossbow, hunting in general, specifics on deer like where to aim, where to set up, how to set up, those types of things. So we did some range shooting with them, got them introduced to their mentors, and so a full program. They signed waivers. There's insurance coverage for the mentors and the mentees that participate, getting over another hump here in the program as well. This is just something from Facebook. This happened to come from Texas, but I stole it here just because it makes a couple of points here about these new hunters, Seth and Adam. Some of the things they saw. This was best experience they've ever had. They got to learn about the experience of hunting from beginning to end, starting with zero knowledge, just an interest there. They had a wealth of knowledge bestowed. So those are the types of reactions that we get. These people, we light a fire in them and they tend to stay hunters. We run into some challenges with youth hunters because sometimes once they become 18, they go off to college, they go to technical school, they start careers, they get married, they have kids, and some of those things take them away from hunting for a while and some never come back. With these adults that are more established, have the money, have some time, we can have more success. I'm going to kind of finish up here with a little bit on field of fork, but I do want to point out a couple of other things from that mentorship study. So, and I think I kind of hit on them in the stories I told, but I want to pull them out. I talked about the interest in hunting, which is quite striking. Over 24 million Americans potentially be interested in becoming hunters. However, while we talked about mentorship, I've used the word mentorship over and over. We've used it in the webinar here. Prospective students for something like this do not like the term mentor. So one thing, Tim, as we think about mentorship is, let's instead talk about being an instructor. We're providing instruction, personal instruction. We're helping them learn to become hunters. Let them bestow the title, let us earn the title of mentor from the work that we do with them. So that's kind of step one. Let's erase the word mentor and mentee, from that matter, from our vocabulary. Another thing, attracting mentors seems to be the key bottleneck. It's not finding people that want to become hunters, it's finding people that are willing to mentor those hunters. So some key things that they found in their surveys and their focus groups, for hunters that are interested or could become instructors for those novices, it's most appealing if they have a trusted organization to facilitate their introduction to the prospective hunter. Kind of get to another key point here. They're also very important to them that there be a formalized program, something that they can follow to give them confidence in what they're doing. Just like Carrie, the mentor for Margot, they're looking, they would hesitate or be potentially unwilling to become mentors if they didn't have that type of program and guidance to follow to help them be an effective instructor. Laura mentioned that in some of the work that they do. They do quite a bit of work around instructing the mentors in their program. The same thing for the National Deer Association, but we're not alone. There are other conservation groups. The National Wild Turkey Federation is a good example of that have developed programs that take people down similar paths. So I'm showing here in this last slide a little bit of information on our local Michigan Field to Fork program. In our case, we are partnered with the Meat Eater. If you're familiar with the Meat Eater podcast, the Meat Eater organization, First Light, another partner there. They've actually donated a property to us here in Michigan specifically for mentoring new hunters. It's the Back 40. It's a property that they have quite a bit of time working on and that we will continue to support and work on. So if you're interested in this, interested in the Michigan Quality Deer Management Association / NDA, National Deer Association, our new name, I've got a Facebook page here, address. The web address at the bottom is a place where you can actually sign up to be a mentor or a mentee. So I've got the address there. It's quite long. Take a picture of it with your phone, Tim or Laura or Katie if you want. Laura and Katie actually have the slides, but that's a place where you can go and sign up to be a mentor. We do have a registration cost for participants in our program. In some cases, branches are waiving that. I know in my case, the West Central branch here in Grand Rapids, we've never charged a mentee, or maybe more likely a student to become to participate in the program. We, like many branches, provide the equipment. We provide the instruction. We even give them some funds to go out and buy some boots and camo, that type of thing. And that's supported by our members and donors. So that's kind of our approach. Those are some of those things that are important to think of. How can you broker connections between mentors and mentees? How can you provide a program that will give a mentor confidence to become a mentee? We address the kind of the issue of potential sexual harassment issues by trying to pair up men with men, females with females. I'll mention in the youth case, we have done and will continue to do youth hunts. Whenever we can, we try to have a family member in the blind along with the instructor at that point. It does take a large blind to do that, but we don't want, we really don't, for the same concerns that Laura raised, we don't want instructors / mentors paired up with youths that are one-on-one for long periods of time in an enclosed space. It's just, well, 99.99% of people are good people that get involved with this. You just don't want situations to arise, whether they're real or imagined or perceived. So I guess I'll stop there. We wanted to make sure we allowed some good time for conversation. And Tim, as you're our star participant here, I would love to have you jump in with any questions for either of us. Can certainly further elaborate on many things.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you, Laura and Erik, for your wonderful presentations. I know I learned a lot, so I'm going to stop.